first chapter of Psalms. I thought this scripture fit Brother Raymond. I think everyone would agree. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law does he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of the water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. We'll all need prayer from Kenneth.
Lord, we thank you tonight for the privilege that we have to meet together and celebrate Brother Raymond's life. God, we thankful for your spirit here among us, God. We feel your spirit here. We are so thankful, God, for his faithfulness and for his example that he has left in front of us, God, that we know that you said that if we be faithful, that we have a crown of life waiting for us, and so we're so thankful for that here tonight, God. We ask your spirit here among us as this family goes forward from this moment, God. We ask that you would be with them. We know that you're the God of all comfort. We're leaning on you here tonight, God. We're thankful for his legacy that he left us, God, of faithfulness and just always being there and always being faithful to you, God. We know that nothing in this life counts. Anything that we attain or hope to accomplish, God, but we know that being a servant for you means that when our earthly house of this tabernacle is dissolved, that we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. Thankful so much for your presence here tonight, God. We ask that you would continue to be with us and guide us. Amen.
It's a wonderful privilege to look at this crowd and pay the respects to Brother Raymond. I can't help but think of the second and third bench this past camp meeting. He was to, I believe, about every meeting. I may have missed one or two. But he got to where he physically could get into the electric cart by himself and get all the way down here. And he did it every time. Brother Raymond, as y'all know, I can't tell you, some of you Norfolk folks any more than you know, but he was a meet and goer. He loved Christ Sanctified Holy Church. The phrase I have used for him and a couple other people, that if you pricked them or cut them, they bleed sanctification and Christ Sanctified Holy Church. And I think that's a good thing. He was getting better. He had come through a spell there where we wasn't sure if he was going to make it from an infection, and was getting better and getting ready to go to rehab and then come home. He was ready. But God evidently had something planned for him. And as some person I had talked to said, well, how wonderful to go. 1 minute you're asking for food, and the next minute you pass away. I think we'd all take that privilege, but not at this time. And so he was when he moved to Columbia, he was a good inspiration to us all. As I said, he was faithful. He participated in the ways he did, as y'all know him. But I thought about this other verse, a couple other verses. This is in Ecclesiastes. And Raymond wasn't a preacher, but I'll talk about his last sermon tomorrow, a little bit about it. It was inspiring to our Columbia crowd. This is a good man. Good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. Now, if you look at that on the face, well, there's so much joy when a new baby comes in the world that how can that be better? But if you have got your name written down the Lamb's Book of Life, if you have gotten all of the sin out of your life, if you have gotten the confirmation from the Lord, not from anybody in this organization, but you get a confirmation from the Lord that I've just heard from heaven, and this one thing I know, my sins are all forgiven, he's washed me white as snow, that is the best thing that you can take when your last breath is gone. So it is better. A good name is better at the day of your death than royalty being born and all the hoopla like that. I kind of fitting that Brother Raymond, he was church royalty, and he died on the same day that some lady somewhere across the pond died, and all the praise for that. But I'd rather have y'all's praise. I'd rather have your confidence. That's what he wanted, and that's what he deserved, and that's what he loved his people so much. It says towards the last of Ecclesiastes, one of the verses, it says, "Remember thy Creator in the days of thy youth." I finally found out how old Brother Raymond was when he got sanctified. He was 11 years old. Sandy knew about it. I called Brother Bernard, called Brother Ed Merritt, called Sister Hazel, called several other people, and their comment was, Raymond was always sanctified. What a good endorsement of that. He was always sanctified. He was. That is, remember the Creator in the days of you, while the evil days come not, and the years draw nigh, and thou shalt say, I had no pleasure in them. He wanted people to get sanctified. Harry, I had a precious cousin, Bobby Jr., who was precious to me, and we knew the days were numbered. And Raymond said, Harry, you need to tell him this. You need to tell him that. And I did tell Bobby in the way I felt comfortable in doing that. But Raymond, that was Raymond. He was looking out for other people. And then the last two verses of Ecclesiastes. Let's hear the conclusion of the whole matter. When all the life, the dreams of life, you're going to be this, you're going to acquire this, you're going to acquire all these things. You know, he had sold all his cars, but down to 2. And everybody knows how Raymond loved his cars. And he did. There's nothing wrong with that. But he realized that the tail end of his life, that was not what was making him happy. It was the Spirit of the Lord. And I have nothing against cars. Don't misunderstand me. But he realized that a good name is better than riches. It says, let's hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God. Fear God. Don't fear man. People will make fun of you. People will say, why do you go to that church? Why are you sanctified? What? Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For the God shall bring every work unto judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. And I have no doubt that somewhere around 12:30 this past Thursday afternoon, that Brother Raymond, when Betsy had stepped out to get something for him and came back and he's passed away, I have no doubt that the Lord was standing up like he did with Stephen and said, come in, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful for a few things. I'll make thee rulers over many. We want to bestow this family. This is Brother Raymond's funeral. He made arrangements a couple of years ago, so you know why he chose me and he chose this person or that person. That's Brother Raymond's wishes. But he also wished that we have at a viewing, have opportunity for those that had worshiped with him, those that he had lived with, to stand up and say something that impressed your life, or how Brother Raymond affected your life. So who will be first? Stand up and say, what happened with Raymond and you? What encouragement did he give you? I know there's somebody in here as bold as I am. Come on up. I'll bring it to you. Anybody? Yeah, I bless you. Come on. Come here, get close to the family.
It's a lot of people. I don't know all of the family, but I'm Deborah, and I grew up in Norfolk with Raymond, and there's never been a time in my life that Raymond wasn't a part of my life. And as far as I knew, he was Uncle Raymond. He was little Raymond. And every memory I have, every birthday, every Christmas I had growing up, Raymond was there.
Yes.
And every memory I don't have, because I was too young, every video, Raymond was there. And every picture, Raymond was there. And he was Uncle Raymond.
Yes.
And every event that we ever had, and he was there in the hard times. He was there at every family emergency. When my grandmother had a stroke and we were little kids, he was there. When we woke up, it was a Friday night after church, and when we woke up Saturday morning, there was Raymond. Now, we didn't recognize him because he didn't have any hair on, but as soon as he put that hair on, we went, oh, that's Uncle Raymond. So we were surprised at who it was. But he was a part of us. Now, I was very upset because he taught my brothers how to break the lock open with a credit card to my bedroom. But he was a part of everything, and he would take us places. He would come and get us. He would take us to Dumars. We would go to Dumars and talk about when Raymond, he had just married Sandy, when Raymond lived here. If you came here, you would see Raymond. And look at that man walking in. He looks like, that is Raymond. That's Raymond. It's a Thursday, and he doesn't even live here. And of course, they had come in town and gone straight to Dumars. And so he would take us there all the time. And he would take us in his cars, all his fancy cars. He'd come pick us up in his fancy cars, and he was so excited to show you. And he came in town, and I had little kids, and I had a business. I had to go pick up laundry and drop off laundry. And he said, well, I want to show you my new car. And I said, okay, well, if you want to go with me, I have to take this kid to preschool, and I have to pick up this laundry. And he goes, we'll take it in my brand new Tesla. Let's go. And so I showed up at people's houses with a basket full of laundry and a Tesla, and the doors came wide open. They thought they must have been paying me way too much to do their laundry. But he was loved by many, but you knew it when Raymond loved you. And I knew that Raymond loved me. My children knew that Raymond loved me. When I told them, and they're young, that Uncle Raymond had passed away, they said, I'm really sad. Yeah. And they don't know how to feel their emotions yet, especially the youngest, and they said, I'm not crying, but I'm just really sad. Yeah. And that's how we all felt about Raymond. I loved him dearly. I'm thankful for the love that he showed me. I'm thankful for the life he lived, that he was steadfast in everything he did. And you knew that when he called, it wasn't going to be a long conversation. You could answer every time because you knew it was going to last about a minute and a half. And he would say, hey there, girl. He said, are you coming to town? And I said, yes, Uncle Raymond, I'm coming to town. He said, okay, I'll see you in the morning. And that was it, whole conversation done. But we loved him, and I loved him, and I just want to tell you all how much he meant to all of us. And he has a special place in our hearts.
Who's next? You're shy. Come on up.
I'll limp up here for you.
Yeah, come on up to the family. Eddie's been around him all his life.
Sam and I grew up together. I asked him one time, I said, do you mind if I call you Sam instead of Raymond? I definitely don't want to call you Little Raymond. And he said, no, you can call me Sam. So that was my name for him. And we got into a lot of stuff that he wouldn't want me to tell you today. And I won't. But Raymond was an unusual guy. He really was. But he loved the Lord. And he wanted everybody to be sanctified. And he cherished the love that everybody had for him. I'm so glad that he found Sandy, or she found him. Not sure how that worked out. But there's another angel in heaven. I loved his parents, and they were very special to me too, like my own parents. I stayed with him a whole month one time. I don't think I ever went home for a whole month. And, but Miss Faye took care of me just like I was Raymond, you know. And you're right when he talked about cars. He loved his cars. I'm going to tell you this one incident. I just went over with Danny Collins when he walked in. We were riding down Military Highway, if you know anything about Virginia, in Norfolk. And there was a Chinese restaurant called Yang's or Ying's or something right there out of the Cloverleaf Circle. One of the first places they ever had a circle, traffic circle. Right between there and I think it was Janeth Shopping Center. I was driving his car. Now, he never let anybody drive that red or burgundy Grand Prix that he had. And Danny Collins was in there with us. And I was on the outside lane, and some guy pulled over. I mean, I saw the guy in my rearview mirror, and he was pulling over into us, and Raymond was in the back seat. Now, how this worked out this way, I'll never know. But that guy hit us. He turned into us and knocked us over into the gravel, and we spun around. We're facing the way in which we were coming. They were facing that way, right in the middle of Military Highway. Dust was everywhere. I think before the car stopped, I'm not sure, I asked Danny about it. I think that Raymond was out of the car before the car actually stopped rolling to see where the guy hit his car. Okay? And the guy must have hit the wheel or the tire because it had a mark, didn't have a mark on it from the guy hitting us and knocking us in a circle. Raymond comes back to the door where I'm sitting. He says, I can't find any marks. I said, I don't think you can see it because you got dust all over your glasses. Anyway, he was adamant about his cars. He went home and washed it and there wasn't a mark on the car. And that was amazing to me how that happened. But we did a lot of other stuff too that it was just an enjoyment to be with Raymond while I was growing up. And I just appreciate his life and his testimony of his walk with Christ. He didn't talk a lot, but you knew that Raymond loved Jesus just by his actions. He was always a kind, sweet, wonderful guy to me, and I appreciate his life.
Bless you. Who'll be next? Like David's going to do it. Another one of his precious buddies.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm David Collins, and I just wanted to pay my respects to Raymond. He was a true friend. If I ever had a friend, I've had a lot of friends, but Raymond was a true friend, and I appreciate him. And one of I think the most memorable experiences I ever had with Raymond, I would think this was about 1994. So Raymond had a boat that was in his garage. Best I can remember for years, it just was in the garage, and I'm not sure it even ran. So over time, he worked, and he says, I'm getting my boat ready. He says, so on July 4th, excuse me, would you go out with me on the boat? And I said, sure, no problem. I'll go with you on the boat. So we went out on I'd say the Elizabeth River. And like you could see the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel in the distance. So we were out a good ways. And I looked down and I see water in the boat. And I said, Raymond, I think this boat is taking in water. He said, no, I've overhauled this thing. It's just a little damp. So a few minutes later, I said, Raymond, this boat is taking in water. So finally he agreed with me, and gratefully we had 2 buckets, and we both started bailing. But we couldn't keep up with it. the water was coming in faster than we could bail the water out. So gratefully, we had 2 life jackets. So we both put on our life jackets, and I just stayed calm. I said, if the boat goes down, I've got my life jacket on. Hopefully I can just stay in the water until help comes. But blessedly, another boat came by and saw that we were in trouble, and he somehow got a rope and tied it to Raymond's boat and started pulling us. And he said, I'm going to Hampton. I'm not going back to Norfolk. So he says, I'll take you to Hampton. So he towed us, and as long as he kept the boat moving, the boat didn't sink. And so he took us to a marina in Hampton and finally got us to safety. And Raymond's dad came to Hampton and picked us up. And I'm not sure whatever happened to the boat, but that was probably one of the most memorable experiences I had with Raymond. We went on trips together. One time we took Amtrak from Newport News to Boston, and then we rented a car and drove to Maine. Went all through Maine, New England. That was a really fun time that I remember. I just appreciate Raymond and thank God for him, that he's such a true friend, and I love you all. Thank you.
Who's next? Who's next? All right, Brother Bobby. Make it all the way here, because I'm looking at the family.
Raymond is like a brother to me. We went to places, and I can remember this one thing real plain. He had the hiccups, and I took him to the hospital, and I stayed all day with him at the hospital. And he come out, he still had the hiccups. But we got ready to go. I said, Raymond, it's kind of late, and I'm tired, and I need to get some rest. He wanted to go to Dumars. So I said, Raymond, we're going to have to not do this. There's something else about Raymond. He was spoiled rotten. Really. His mom put his clothes out for him. I imagine you did too. And he was a good sanctified boy.
Yes, he was.
His dad and mom was too.
Yes, they were. Faithful.
So faithful. You talk about a silver spoon. The guy had a gold spoon. Really. And he loved the Lord. He loved every one of y'all too.
Yes, he did.
And someday I'm gonna meet him. I'm 10 years older than Raymond. He's 79, I believe. I'm 89, and I'll be 90 in November. And what's so good? I'm gonna live forever. Hallelujah.
Amen.
Jesus is gonna make it that way. And Brother Raymond, I love you, buddy. He can't hear me, but he can hear me up there.
Bless. Who's next? Who'll be next? Brother Bodie.
I'd like to say a few things about Raymond. When I first came around his church, I never was well acquainted with Raymond. I never, we would speak and he would speak, and that was about it. And by and by, me and Raymond came from different backgrounds. Raymond come along, just what Brother said, with a silver spoon in his hand. I came up working since I was 6 years old every day and never got nothing unless I bought it myself, usually, But we had a loving family too. But anyway, Raymond, when him and Sandy started dating, we still we couldn't carry on a conversation. I liked him, he liked me, and it was just, and we'd go places together, but every time we went off, we talked about cars and being sanctified. I mean, that was the two things he really had on his mind, was cars and people going to heaven. And he would talk about it and say, you know, I just can't understand why people do this or won't do that.
Right.
But make a little, I don't want to just get into all this, but Raymond, when Raymond and Sandy got married, we're a close family.
Yes.
And we always go places, and every Christmas, we had Christmas, the whole family, Fred and Louise's, and they got a little older, they moved to my house. In the meantime, Raymond, you know, him and Sandy, so the first Christmas he came with us to my house to spend Christmas. And we had a house full. My house is not that big, and we had probably 30, 35 people. And Raymond was standing in the living room, and my son's boy, he was about 9 years old. And he was back in the bedroom, he didn't know Raymond. So he come running down the hallway with his socks on, and he slid past him. And he turned around and said, "Who are you?" And it kind of embarrassed me, because I went over to say something to Raymond. I said, "Man, I'm sorry, you know how kids are." And he thought that was the funniest thing that I did. We laughed about that, and I've heard him tell people that. And I told him, you know, I was going to apologize for, you know, how kids do sometimes. But he said, "Who are you?" And Raymond turned around and looked at him. But we traveled a lot together from the campground to Columbia all the time, because they were working down here.
Yeah.
He was helping me, supervising me, doing some work on the trailer I had there. But he would come, and we were completely different. I was used to working, and Raymond used to be the boss man. And everything would go on. I finally found out, well, I need to ask him what he would do. Because he knew the best way. And he was a carpenter, supposedly worked as a carpenter. Yes. But I enjoyed so much working with him. Raymond usually takes his nap every hour or two, and I still went on working. I look around, and Raymond would be in there on the couch taking a nap when it get hot. But I love Raymond.
Yes. Oh,
he was a good example for me. I'd been just gotten sanctified, and I enjoyed being with him, and my family loved him. And he was, you know, it was completely opposite. And it's hard, you know, you can live with people a lot. And have a good friendship with them. You don't have to have the same thoughts and things they do. And the little cars and things. I went up to help him unload his car when he moved. It took us 6 hours to unload his toys. He had 3 of those containers full of toys, and it was raining. And we unloaded every bit of that, and it took us 6 hours. And he was so proud of them toys. And I've never seen anybody like that. But Sandy still got them. Because he wouldn't sell them, he wouldn't give them away, he didn't want nobody to mess them up.
That's right.
That's the reason. But he just loved that. And cars, I've never seen anybody love cars.
Yeah.
And he got that Tesla, and I was the type person, we'd be going somewhere, and you're getting tired and going on. Raymond said, "We got to stop, gas this thing up." I said, "You want gas it?" So we had to stop and spend 45 minutes or an hour to charge it, so we'd go somewhere else. And I'd get on him about it. I said, "Hey, I could fill up with gas in 5 minutes and be gone, and it'd take an hour and a half." But it didn't bother him at 1 iota. Because that was just the type of person was. He loved everybody. He really did. He had a good feeling for everybody. He loved my kids, just like he knew them all of his life, and he was good to them.
Yes, he
And
was.
they were good to him, that's right. Because we loved him, the whole family did. And I just want to say something good about Raymond, and I was thinking about this the other day when I went up to the hospital up there, how people like that talking about sanctification and been brought up in the church. And he's told me I don't know how many times about his mother and father, how they came to the church out of North Carolina. I think he moved up to Norfolk, and how his life changed with them. But anyway, I'm glad I knew him, and I'm glad my family got acquainted with him, and they all loved him, and he loved us. And he treated them just as nice as he could. That's about all I got to say.
It was a little culture shock to Raymond, being an only son and being cared for by his mom and dad, to suddenly jump in the middle of the Merritt family. So I'm part of them, so I can say it, but it was a little intimidating to him. But guess what? They won him over and he won them over. And that's anybody. Who's next? Who's next? All right, go ahead.
I'm new to this crowd, and I live in Terry. I met Raymond this year at their camp meeting. We stayed at their house. I'm married to his cousin, Patricia. At the time, we were not married. No, I was wrong a while ago when I told you that earlier. So they decided that I slept in the third floor with the toys and the train set and on a little single bed mattress. That's all. And that was fine. That was okay. She slept downstairs in the very bottom, all the way over in the corner, in a big queen size bed. But that was fine. I met Raymond through, like I say, through Latricia. And I had talked to him on the telephone when he would call Latricia. This is your Raymond and da-da-da, and we, talked just a minute or two. But when I went up there, it was just like walking into my mom and daddy's house. It was come on in, have a good time, this is what we got, this is what you do, here you are. This house is your house just like it is anywhere else. And I never was treated no kinder from a man that did not know me from Adam's off house cat. He was he was worried about whether I was sanctified really good or not. He wanted to make sure that I was, and I understood that I was, you are really good and sanctified. And I said, well, I'm about as good as I can get. I don't know. He throwed me out in the aisle at church, and I went down there and talked to him, and they said I was good to go, Brother Donnie. And he was the kind of a guy that I would have loved to have known all my life. But the few short months that I did know him was a joy to me to know that there was a human in this world that was like him. He was a very special man. And even though I did not know him but just a few short months, I will miss him. I'll miss the conversations that we have over her phone when she got it on the loudspeaker. And it's going to be a void somewhere. But that's all right. He's in a better place. He's in a place where he's loved and cherished every day, and he knows that people have loved and cherished him.
I'll be quick.
Yeah, it's all right. Take your time.
When Brian was 3 months old, we moved from Charlotte to Norfolk, and we moved in one of Dad's duplexes. And it was all we could do to get moved in. We had a baby, and I was tired. It was Christmas time. And Raymond came over to visit, welcome us to Norfolk, and he says, "Where's your Christmas tree?" And I said, we'll just go over to Mom and Dad's and we'll have Christmas over there. Well, he could not stand that the baby wasn't going to have a Christmas tree. And he went out and he bought one of those that you hang on the wall, that's kind of wire with lights on it, and you plug it in. And so he even hung it up on the wall. And he says, "Now Brian's got a Christmas tree." It was just a kind thing to do, very kind. And that said everything about him. He was very kind to everyone, very loving, very faithful to the church. And I've known him all my life. And when he plunged into your family, I'm not sure you all realize what you did for him.
Yes.
I mean, he just, had no sisters, no brothers, and so it was wonderful. And I've got an answer about why better is the day of your death, because pay attention at the grave committal, those verses that are read. One of them says, "Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints." That's why it's better, because it's precious in the sight of the Lord when one of his saints passes on.
Pretty wonderful. I think you can tell Elder Raymond affected everybody's life. Yes, part of it was his personality and his loving kindness, but also I think is his love for the God. And that's the common spirit that's between all of us. All of us act different, talk a little different, but when God's love is put into your heart, when he changes your wanter, as Brother Joseph used to say, and changes your desires, there is a change, and it is available. If you don't get sanctified at 11, we had one of the matriarchs of this family get sanctified 50, 70 days before her death. And as I've told people, how wonderful that spirit was that was manifest. That light shined brightly. But Raymond was steadfast, unmovable, always bounding in the work of the Lord. And that is why a good name is chosen, the great riches. He had some financial successes in his life, but that was not Raymond. Raymond was, "I'm sanctified, I want you to be sanctified." And so we will we'll have lunch in the cafeteria tomorrow starting at 12. Come on. This is another one of his family's best friends.
I know it. You wouldn't think we'd be here this soon. I didn't expect it. When the first message I got, I just couldn't believe it. But Raymond's been part of my life ever since I've been born. Our parents were best friends. My mother, Tom and Virginia, were best friends. And then Tom and Hazel were best friends with Raymond and Faye. So we were kind of considered nearly kin. We always felt like it. And he always, I remember when I came back to the church and got sanctified, Raymond's way of encouraging me, y'all may laugh, we laughed, but he would call on me. If we ever went to a feast meeting on Easter and he ran meeting, without a doubt, Raymond could find me. And I think I've done about everything on a Friday night or a Saturday night at that. That was his just way of saying, "I'm glad you're here." He would find something. He welcomed me back when I got sanctified. And I always kept an eye on him. And then when I found out he had an eye for Sandy, then I said, well, I got to go check this out. I felt like a big sister at that time, and I did. I walked over to Harriet's cabin. I remember that morning, and I said, I'm going to, here's Miss Protective Janice going to check this out. And when I walked in the door, what the Lord had planned out so pretty was they were sitting there with the Bible going over her life and what she felt. And when I walked in there, I go, Lord, you got it under control. You are doing, this is good. She cares about him, he cares about her. I am thrilled. Now, don't misunderstand me. There were adjustments. In any marriage, there is adjustment. Ask me. I had 6 children all of a sudden one time, and it was an adjustment. But when you depend on the Lord and you ask the Lord for guidance, He will guide and take care of you. And I thought of one song with Raymond, Great is Thy Faithfulness. That's one thing you can talk about Raymond. It's his faithfulness to the Lord. And I called him many a time, and I said, Raymond, you've never had a child, you never had a grandchild, you've got that. It's a new role to take. But he did learn to embrace it. And I'm thankful. Now, was that God's working? It was God's working. And I go back and look at Raymond's life, and he was an only child, and an only child is different in a family. And he was an exceptional older child, but he loved everybody. And someone wrote on Facebook, and you see little comments they wrote on Facebook, he would always find something in common with you. And when he came to you, he talked about it. If you liked cars, man, he would come to you. Model trains. I didn't like any of that. I remember he came and asked me one time to ride in his car, and I said, what is a Tesla? You know, I didn't know. I think it probably popped his balloon that day, but I didn't know what it was. I had to ask Dan about it. But we talked about family. We talked about love of this church. We talked about what true salvation was, and we talked about marriage and loving one another. That is what he's all about. That is what he was all about. But he was a true friend to me. It was an honor to be considered his friend. And I loved him very much.
I do want to announce that we will have eating at the cafeteria at 12. Family will go first. Let us all stand. My home is on the other side, and there's a waiting there. I soon shall the smelling tide from everywhere. Oh, ranges through the streets.
Tell you something before we dismiss. Been wanting to get up here all night, kept putting it off. Raymond and myself work for Brother Billy Collins in Norfolk. This is probably the first job that Raymond had. I don't know where you've ever framed your house, nailed in the subfloor or not. You normally squat down and get on your knees and move right along, which is hard work, don't misunderstand me. When Raymond come to work for me, he would sit down, nail between his legs, just scoot a little bit more, nail. If you've ever framed a house, you ain't gonna get there real quick. you get on your knees and you walk off, squatted down and move along pretty good. He also worked for Carl Wright. Some of the boys over there got cutting up with him. So he crawled out on the roof, probably about a 7, 8, 12 pitch, holding on to a toe board, hiding from everybody, you know. They kept worrying. You had to know Raymond to appreciate it. He was a great man. A great man. He finally got tired of holding on that toe board, laying flat on the roof, and turned it loose. When he turned it loose, it was such a pitch on the roof, he went all the way to the ground, fell off the roof. But he was a great man. I guess his first job was working with Billy Collins and myself, but he was a great man. Appreciate it. Let's all look to the Lord and be dismissed. Kind Heavenly Father, we thank Him for a life that Brother Raymond has lived. What a great example he has been to all of us. We thank you, dear Lord, for your abiding presence that goes with us from day to day. Without you, I don't know how we would make it. But we're depending on your grace to follow to carry us through. Be with the service tomorrow. Bless the preacher. We appreciate everyone that's being here, far and near. We thank you for your abiding presence that goes with us. We ask you to go with us and be with us tomorrow. We'll be thankful and give you the praise. Amen.